Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi.
Jai Hind.
The whole war in the Middle East today is giving us an opportunity to dig back into history to find out where things have gone wrong. The stated policy of India is a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. I have someone with me, Colonel
Yes,
Atahle, who's done a PhD on the subject. So let's try and understand his perspective, whether a two-state solution is actually possible, looking at history from that region. Sir, firstly, Jai Hind and welcome to the show.
Jai Hind to you and to all the viewers and listeners. Yes, it's my delight that I'm able to shed some light on something which, frankly, gives nightmares to anybody who has been involved in security analysis because for a very long time, the understanding was if the Third World War is to start, it is going to start in the Middle East. And that is the fear for many of us, especially after this Hamas action on what I call as Yom Kippur 2.0, because the Yom Kippur 1 was in 1973 when the Egyptians attacked across the Suez Canal and shook the Middle Eastern politics, because till then Israel was the Dada of Middle East, so to say, invulnerable and military superiority and what have you.
Hmm.
The Egyptians, with their successful attack in Yom Kippur 1 on 6th October 1973, punctured that Israeli ego. And the entire world politics changed after that, because not just the Egyptians achieved that, that military success led to an unprecedented Arab unity. And Arabs, for the first time, wielded the oil weapon. There was an oil blockade of the world. The oil prices from 3 cents a barrel went up to $3 a barrel, the biggest ever change in that. And ever since then, OPEC as a organization has been controlling the world economy. We know very well that inflation in India is directly linked to the rising oil prices. So the Middle East and the Yom Kippur wars, uh, be it 73 or be now after exactly 50 years in 2023, they have larger than its actual physical size effect. It's a strategic effect on the entire world economy, politics, and as I said, the danger of escalation and Third World War. Yeah.
Hmm. Indeed, sir, there is just no question. It's a very dangerous situation. But sir, how does the whole two-state solution has been talked about since the and it's a giving from the Israelis itself. They were the ones who proposed a two-state solution in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first place.
yeah.
So how does this frame into context, and does anybody today in that region actually want a two-state solution?
Uh, I have been basically studying insurgency and counterinsurgency for last 30 odd years, and worldwide, be it in Kashmir, Sri Lanka, Northeast, Northern Ireland, etc., etc. See, the problem is two-state solution, that is West Bank and Gaza Strip becoming more or less independent states with some sort of a security arrangement with Israel, but otherwise fully independent states, uh, has been in the making for last 30, 40 years. What has been happening is that every time there is some movement towards resolution, a tiny group of extremists who want nothing on the Arab side, who want nothing but the destruction of Israel and complete Israel becoming part of the state of Palestine. Because they claim that, and rightly so, that for last 2000 years, Palestine has been inhabited by Arabs, Arab Muslims. It is only in 47, 48 that the Jews came in and ousted them from their homeland. So logically, yes, their demand is very, you can say, just. But now the reality of last 75 years is that the Jews, refugees from world over have come in there. And for last 75 years, Israel as a state has existed. So in this new reality that the extremist wing in the Palestinian cause refuses to acknowledge, and every time, which it's not just what is happening now, it also happened during Yasser Arafat's time as a PLO when he came and had his agreement of this two-state solution. Basically begins with Arafat, PLO. So PLO was then condemned as sellout, American agents, usual this thing. In every single insurgency, there is always this small group of extremists who make maximalist demands. And unfortunately, despite being small in number and minority in number, mind you, majority of the Palestinians uh, may desire complete, Palestine coming to them, including Israel, but are realistic enough that it is not possible. And we're quite happy with the situation that was currently on right up to 6 October. That is the economic relationship with Israel. The Gaza people used to come work, and there was certain amount of prosperity which was coming in, which the common people wanted that. But then again, so that is where actually the conspiracy theories come in. Uh, the recent coming close of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel, and India, mind you, as a counter to the Chinese Belt and Road, etc., etc., uh, set the cat amongst the pigeon. So, I mean, to understand who must be behind all this, one has to ask a simple question: who benefits?
Mhm.
In the current situation with Hamas, realistically speaking, is Hamas capable of destroying state of Israel? No. Is Israel capable of actually occupying and holding Gaza? Again, no. So essentially, a lot of bloodletting, setback to the peaceful atmosphere, and the Saudi, UAE, Israel, India corridor as an alternative to the Chinese thing goes for a six. So I would not be surprised that behind all this was the unseen hand of China. But China currently is still not sufficiently militarily strong to challenge United States openly. So it uses proxies. Against India, it uses proxy of Pakistan. So, I mean, this is it's not a conspiracy theory. Logic tells you that the Gaza area in Hamas is incapable of producing these many rockets and this and that. Even Iran is incapable of giving them that much. You will find that somewhere on the rockets which have fallen on Israel, if you remove the cover, you will find made in China, like you find in most of the goods world over today. Yeah,
We, I mean, I've been talking about this on my channel. There's a hidden, the hidden hand of China is
yeah,
something that one can't ignore. There is just no question. I apologize for my voice. Uh, what I want to actually ask you next is: we know that there's been a hidden hand of China. We know that the Pakistanis have been also in it because these Hamas guys have been training within Pakistan. So there is that angle of it. You've elucidated to the factor that you know uh, 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 there is a larger game at play as well.
yeah,
Today, when you see this thing escalating, sir, a chapter from history, how does it explain to you what is happening on the ground? The brutality that we saw is not something which has been seen before. So how do you put that into perspective?
yeah. Two, three things. Let us also understand very clearly that terrorism per se was started in Middle East not by Arabs, but it was started by Israel. In 48, when the Arabs refused to part with that land, the Israelis or the Jews um, used the weapon of terrorism. There were these Jewish gangs. Important among them was Irgun and Stern, these two gangs. Incidentally, the head of the Irgun gang at that time and declared terrorist by the British government, mandate government, was none other than Menachem Begin, who subsequently became the Prime Minister of Israel. So the what the Jews did was there is a famous there's a village called Deir Yassin in Palestine. In 48, Israelis attacked that village and killed every single person in that village, man, woman, child, beast. Something like, I think, 400 or 500 people were just massacred. The news of Deir Yassin spread like wildfire in Palestine.
Yeah.
And that led the Palestinian Arabs to flee their villages and vacate them for the Israelis to come and occupy. So let's put two, facts on the ground. So that being the case, and as I mentioned to you, the extremist fringe, there is another angle which we tend to not really understand or focus on is there is a tremendous amount of instability coming up today in Israel itself because of the demographic imbalance. There are Arabs within Israel who are slowly growing in number and are likely to soon outnumber the Jews. So the demographic imbalance which is taking place in Israel itself, plus even in Gaza Strip, you see the population that is growing at such a fast pace that that is creating its own pressures. And that is something which cannot be avoided. The same demographic pressure is being created in Pakistan also. If you see the videos of Pakistan, I mean, today Pakistan has fallen behind Bangladesh, essentially just because of the runaway growth in population. So poverty is increasing. The poverty, along with the extremist ideology, gives birth to the kind of terrorism that comes in. Incidentally, since we are on history, one must straightaway debunk this nonsense of Pakistani support for Palestinians. India has been a more steadfast supporter of just cause of Palestine, in the sense two-state solution. We are not for destruction of Israel. We believe that Israel has right to exist, and so do Palestinians. Pakistanis, on the other hand, they have been responsible for one of the biggest massacres of Palestinians in 1970, called the Black September. It was under Ziaul Haq that the armored brigade, the tanks went and shot Palestinians, men, women, and children with gusto under Ziaul Haq, the so-called Momine Islam and what have you, what have you. He had no compunction and no qualms in killing innocent civilian Palestinians in the Shatila and Sabra camp. So, I mean, Pakistanis, when they shout too much, they need to be told that this is your past. Anyway, so this complication of demography, extremist fringe, Chinese interest and involvement. Incidentally, Iran is shit scared. I mean, sorry to use unparliamentary word, but Iran is shit scared and is going out of their way publicly to say that we are not involved because they are afraid that Israel will strike them and destroy their nuclear facilities and all kinds of things. So they are trying to say, nahi, हमने कुछ नहीं किया है. Otherwise, in all other earlier instances, Iran would be the first one to say, "Oh, we are supporting the Palestinian cause." So they are now saying, "No, no, no, we are only giving moral and political support, no military support." So by process of elimination, with Iran doing what this is, uh, it seems that again the not so well hidden hand of China seems to be there. Russia, whether it has currently the attention span, the resources, and frankly the brains to do something like this, I have my grave doubts. I mean, the Russian general staff has shown itself to be, I mean, in the Ukraine war, I mean, the one question I've been asking, what have they been smoking while taking decisions? So Russia can be ruled out because of that reason. But this is how I see the situation. But what this has done is that it has, of course, set back the uh, peace process. It has set back the moderate Arab countries' outreach towards Israel. Whether it will have similar long term effects like the Yom Kippur one, that is 73, had, uh, at the moment, one can't say. But if Israel is to overreact and create a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and the pictures of babies dying, this and that, and Gaza being actually Gaza Strip is a huge refugee camp
Yeah.
and extremely thickly populated. So even if you throw a stone, somebody is going to die there. So if Israel doesn't show restraint and these things start pressuring the rest of the Arab countries to change their policies towards Israel, Hamas would have achieved a certain aim. Now, uh, whether that happens or doesn't happen depends largely on how successfully Israel moderates its response. Israelis are not known for moderating their response. Plus, the kind of fighting that they are thinking of in Gaza, that is urban area fighting, is a nightmare. And bombing makes it even worse because to clear debris is more difficult than to clear standing buildings.
Yeah.
As an infantry soldier, I can tell you this is the worst nightmare of any infantry soldier. Armor is useless there. A small single infantryman hiding behind a broken building or something with an ordinary RPG 7 or something can take on a tank. And today, the technology has changed in such a way that the smart weapons are cheaper, and a counter to smart weapons is extremely expensive. So the economics of war has now today shifted towards the small man with a small gun rather than big man with a big tank, which is what is playing out just now in the Hamas thing. So this is the
Very well said, sir. I said this couple of days ago that the Israelis need to take a deep think as to what they're getting into.
yeah,
Looking at what the Russians and the Ukrainians had a slug match in Bakhmut. Uh,
yes.
as a non-military observer, I said, "Yeah, this is dangerous. Think before you're going inside. If you're not prepared for it, your air campaign is good. Keep it that way. It's giving a lot of pressure, and it's not going to escalate." I got a lot of
My
flack saying that who are you to judge the Israeli army and all
you know
this
my
stuff.
my guess is uh, this land invasion is a smokescreen. Most likely, the Israelis may well launch a seaborne assault because my feeling is that the Gaza Strip people or the Hamas may not have been expecting assault from the sea because you have to go across the Gaza or go onto the ship, and amphibious assaults are very difficult operation in any case. So the Israelis may launch an attack from the seaside, and keep on holding from the land side instead of going into this thing, and thus kind of hammer and anvil tactic. They already asked the civilian population, non-Hamas population, to move away from North Gaza. Uh, so this is what I feel is the one of the most feasible tactics that the Israelis may use. But again, whichever way you go, fighting in built-up areas, as we call it, is one of the most difficult military operations, very heavy in casualties, and manpower is something that Israelis don't have, and the Arabs and the Palestinians have that aplenty. Plus, unlike in the past, today's Palestinian fighters are both well motivated and well trained. To give you a historical background, the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon in 1982, when Israelis had launched uh, an attack in Bekaa Valley. So, usual Israeli tactics used to be in response to shelling from Lebanon, they used to send their armor columns, destroy some places, and come back.
Correct.
First time in 1982, way back in 82, the Hezbollah, which is mainly Iranian Shiite outfit in southern Lebanon, they gave such a run for money to the Israelis that the Israelis could not achieve their military objectives. So in 82 itself, Israel has his situation has changed.
Correct.
73 you can take as the tipping point, inflection point. That time onwards, this undoubted Israeli superiority has become more or less a myth. Like, unfortunately for the Israelis, the so-called efficiency of Mossad has been torn to tatters. I mean, it's that they could not give a warning about such a major force getting together, etc., etc., is mind-boggling. I mean, I don't think in the modern era such a major intelligence failure has ever been
Yeah.
faced by any country. I have a little warning to us from that point of view. I've just now been in Kashmir, and Kashmir is absolutely and genuinely enjoying unprecedented peace. But within Kashmir and definitely in Pakistan, there are elements who don't like it. So just because a large majority doesn't want war and violence, it doesn't mean it will not happen. And that is the kind of danger that exists, that a small minority, and then it can lead to a setback which will set our time again 10, 20 years back. The reason why my own educated guess is reason why this colossal intelligence failure occurred in Israel is the terrible political instability that Israel was facing for last 2 3 years. There was no government worth the name, and unfortunately, that disease of instability has apparently affected Mossad and the Israeli Defense Forces also. This is a warning to Indians that if we are thinking in 2024 of a Khichdi government and prime ministers coming and going or kind of a thing, we should be aware that across our western border, there is an enemy who is facing demographic pressures, has nothing to lose. कहते हैं ना नंगे से खुदा भी डरता है. That's the thing we have to be very careful. This is the one lesson that we ought to take from the Hamas attack.
Sir, I must say, you're in our your views and the platform's views, and a lot of speakers that come here are
Yeah.
absolute. It's like you've been on the platform for a long time, and I must say it'll be an honor to have you regularly on the platform to share such
Thank you very much.
clarity of thought.
It's been my pleasure
Uh,
to share my
I want
insights here.
I want to ask you my final two questions before I conclude
Okay.
this interview. So, one, looking at the situation right now,
Yeah.
we see Anthony Blinken doing his shuttle diplomacy, going around and trying to basically crack a deal somewhere or the other. And we saw the gates of the Rafah border open up between
Yeah.
Egypt
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
which news came yesterday, but everybody denied it. Today, finally, it's
Yeah.
opened
Yeah.
up. US citizens are coming out, and
Yeah.
there is some amount of aid going inside. So that tells you there is some negotiations happening, and the short factors of Qatar, the Emir of Qatar and the foreign minister were greeted, meted, and this and that. And then after
Yeah.
that, we saw the Hamas guy meeting with the Iranians within Qatar as well. So there is something happening at the background. Do you think that there will be a hot military conflict, or would this be reduced down? Temperatures will be brought down through negotiations, and Israelis will be allowed to exact a certain amount of revenge through their air campaign and then just calm down. What do you think is going to happen, sir?
Uh, luckily, luckily for the world, that one of the biggest losers besides Israel in this Hamas attack is are countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia. When the Saudi Arabian and Egyptian interests coincide together, they are the two. One is the wealthiest country, and second is the most populous as well as militarily the most capable country. When these two stand to lose, and they are not going to back Hamas, uh, also I think there is a war weariness in Egypt also. Egypt has also seen terrible days. So the extremists of Hamas are not having that kind of attraction which they expected probably in countries like Egypt. Syria is in itself in shambles. Jordan, you have not heard a chum from Jordan because Jordan is staunchly pro-Israel and pro-West. So, really speaking, even the West Bank state of Palestine, they pro forma, they had to support them. But
No,
otherwise,
yesterday the guy said, "No, I don't. Whatever Hamas has done doesn't represent any of the
yeah,
Palestinians." So there
absolutely.
you
So within Palestinian also, the West Bank state and Gaza is two separate entities altogether. So I do feel that yes, some amount of via media will be found out. But both Hamas's days are numbered, and also the very strong, unnecessarily provocative policies of Benjamin Netanyahu, they also will have to change. And now there is, as it is, pressure within Israel also on him. So I don't think Netanyahu is likely to survive this crisis.
well said. So I think he's going to face a challenge as far as his leadership is concerned.
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
I think the last month's issues where they went under the Al-Aqsa and created that little, that ceremony or whatever they did in those tunnels
yes,
and proclaimed, that created a lot of problems, which
yes,
a lot of the Western narrative of the war is not talking about. But that is the
yes.
reality, and thank you so much for
But
bringing that out.
yeah,
So I want to further finally ask you. Now you've got the Middle East, which is now led, if I may, in part by Saudi Arabia, and there is the second power center, which let's call it a power center, Iran, which is trying to one shake hands with the Saudis, but the strategic competition does not go away.
yeah,
You can't just wipe off 1400 years worth of enmity.
yeah,
We also have the Chinese trying to dabble into this thing, and we know that the Saudis are asking the Americans for a comprehensive security agreement, a NATO style comprehensive security agreement.
yes, yes.
With something like this happening in the Middle East, does Saudi Arabia's hand become stronger in asking the Americans for what they want, and thereby actually also helping the Americans push the Chinese out?
Two, three things. One is that The oil economy itself, though not redundant as yet, but essentially the control and the power of oil is reducing, as you can see, the way alternative sources of energy, etc., plus environmental concerns, etc. So Saudi Arabia is a power on decline, so to say, in that sense. And they are well aware of that. Many of their moves, Sultan bin, the present ruler, the kind of compromises that he's making and changes that he's bringing about in Saudi Arabia, are unprecedented. So in that sense, the Saudis don't hold that kind of a clout that they did some years ago over the Americans, as far as oil and their clout is concerned. But because of the fear of the Chinese and Russia, China combined these days, working into Middle East. So because of that, the Americans would be uh, chary of disturbing or you know annoying the Saudis or Egyptians and others. That is the trying to prevent the Chinese and the Russians from gaining a foothold in the Middle East. But there's another unfortunate twist to all this. I traveled to Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan, um, because of the Uyghur issue and the kind of treatment that the Chinese are meting out to the Muslim minority in their own country. Chinese are the most disliked people in Central Asia, despite all their belt and this and that and all kinds of investments and all that. The Central Asian people just do not like the Chinese, period.
Wow.
So, which is not hidden from the Middle Eastern people also. They may sort of do business with China, but the kind of influence, say, the USA has got or the erstwhile Soviet Union had in the Middle East, Chinese cannot hope to have that till the time this uh, stone is around the neck of this Xinjiang and the Uyghur and their whatever they're doing with the Uyghurs.
I mean, I must say, sir, this has been quite a eye opener as far as the Middle Eastern affairs is concerned. I would like to request you on record, sir. I'd like to plan a series of discussions with you, looking at each country and their interests going forward. Because I guess with India getting more and more involved within the region, with the IMAC coming up, and
Yeah.
India trying to actually build up a new fold of a relation with the Israelis as well. And
Yes.
with the geopolitical heft that India is carrying with regards to the global south, I think it'll be interesting to analyze the Middle East, West Asia region, and to understand each country and its interests and why they are doing what they're doing today, especially
Yeah.
with this conflict which has
Certainly.
come out. So I'd really request
Certainly.
your indulgence with this, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear your insights, sir.
Yeah.
For
Certainly.
today, thank you so much for taking out the time, sir, and
Welcome,
I'm
giving me
grateful
an
for your time.
opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Yeah.